But let's talk about talk and the importance of talking in South Africa. Today, Primedia is remembering one of its founders, Issie Kirsh, passing away at the weekend at the age of 90 years old. He launched 702 in the 80s at the height of apartheid. He may have started the idea of 702 as a music station, but Issie Kirsh was a visionary who wanted to give a voice to the public, no matter how marginalized by the then apartheid states. So a pioneer when it comes to talk radio in South Africa. So 702 starts that then in 1997. CapeTalk then arrives as part of the Primedia stable to replicate that talk radio 702 format of having South Africans talking together. But it then goes beyond that. There was an extension of the 702 CapeTalk formats based in Ramallah, in Palestine. It was called Ram FM. Its aim was to broadcast from Ramallah and Jerusalem into Israel and Jordan, and it was to get Palestinians and Israelis to have difficult conversations. So at Primedia today we remembering the visionary ideas of one of its founders, Issie Kirsh. Joining me now, Chris Gibbons, one of the first news voices on Talk Radio 702, joins me this morning. It's been a while. I was having a lovely conversation. All the best things were said about you last week, Chris, and I hope your ears were tingling with all the good vibes that we were sending you from our little desk here in what we call the pit, where we plan our shows. Good morning.
Good morning, Lester. Good morning, Cape Town. It's been a while.
I've missed that voice so much, and it's a voice that Primedians, Cape Talkers, but also those on 702 have been quite familiar with all these years. You were brought on board to 702 when, as a station, transitioning from a music format to a half an hour format of talk and music, and then to a completely talk format, bringing in independent news in the late 80s, early 90s. What is it that you remember of the vision of Issie Kirsh?
Well, I've just got to correct you on one thing there, Lester. I was actually on air on 702 on the very, very first day in June of 1980. I was the sports editor.
Oh, really?
And I was in charge of a department of one. And then we moved on to news in 1981. But remember how 702 started? We launched a music station called Channel 702, the Rainbow of Sound. The first time I can remember people talking about South Africans in a rainbow sense. Became very popular many years later. But we wanted music to reach every South African of every race, every color, every religion. And that was Issie's first vision. And it didn't work terribly well because the advertisers didn't come on board. The advertisers said to us, guys, you've got to make a decision. You either target the black market or you target the white market. And Issie took a deep breath and said, well, the white market's where the money is, so we'll target the white market. And we swung to being a music station for whites. Now, back in those days, the SABC was the monopoly. And they decided to try and crush this upstart music station by putting 5FM targeting the younger sector, and Highveld, as it then was, 94.7 as it now is, targeting the older sector. And they're both big FM transmitters, and they nearly put us out of business. And Issie made the very bold, visionary decision to change from being a music station to talk. Nobody was doing talk at that time. It was very big in the United States. Issie said, we can do this. So in 1985, we started shifting towards talk, much bigger emphasis on news, on information. And by 1987, we were fully a talk station. And of course, 1987, South Africa was in flux. There was a state of near civil war in many parts of the country. The Nats were on the run, the apartheid government. Mandela was still in jail, of course. So there's huge amounts to talk about. And we leapt on that bandwagon. And Issie gave us the wherewithal to fly, and it was a most exciting venture, a most exciting time to be on radio in South Africa.
So talk to me about how actually talk radio 702 before 1994, and then CapeTalk, as we're now trying to build on this project, this experiment of democracy. How talk radio in South Africa with Issie's vision actually helped the democratization project in South Africa?
Well, for the first time, and again, you have to remember that mid-1980s, the SABC controlled everything, apart from this upstart station broadcasting from the supposedly independent Republic of Bophuthatswana, one of the homelands. But suddenly, a white person could call in and talk to a black person. This was unheard of. People could raise issues like, what are we going to do? When should Mandela be released? Release Mandela. No, Mandela's a terrorist. Execute him. Conversations like that between race groups never, ever happened. And suddenly they were happening all over the place. 1990, Mandela is released and change is in the air. Suddenly, the debate for the next 4 years up until the election really becomes incredibly intense. People crying on air, people shouting at each other on air, people having serious conversations, politicians talking to other politicians, and so on and so forth. But 1994 comes along, the election happens, and the landscape is going to change. Suddenly, independent radio is not something that is completely unheard of. The SABC will have opposition, and from that process, the SABC starts selling off radios, selling off spectrum, and Issie looks at Cape Town and says, you know what, they don't have anything like 702 in Cape Town, they need it, and from that came CapeTalk.
And then he looks beyond that and says, where can we replicate that in other parts of the world? And then in 2004, the seed is planted of Ram FM based in Ramallah to try. And we're very, very good as South Africans of exporting our best practices. And then Ram FM in Palestine also becomes this vision for Issie Kirsh.
Absolutely. Issie by that point, had realized that what he had achieved with 702 was quite remarkable in terms of bringing people together, talking across political, religious, cultural divides, getting them pointing more or less in the same direction. And he attempted to do that, as you say, in Palestine, occupied Palestine. And in fact, I went over with Issie in 2008. He wanted me to work for the radio station. I had a look at the setup. But unfortunately, one of the staff members was a really very, very pro-Palestinian and kind of hijacked the airwaves a little bit, but it was enough to really light the touch paper of the Israeli authorities, who, as you know your Middle Eastern history, you don't cross these guys. They moved in. This was about 3 weeks after I'd come back to South Africa and I was about to accept a job there. They just closed the station down. Everyone was locked up, put in chains, dragged away to jail. Several of our colleagues languished in jail. Issie said, I'll go over and I'll sort this out. And his lawyer said, don't even think about getting on the plane. They will arrest you, they will lock you up, and they will throw the key away. As we know, the Israelis, well, let's just say they play hardball.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, these brands created by CapeTalk and 702 out of the vision of Issie Kirsh, whether it be the Midday Report, whether it be Talk at 9, whether it be the idea of the open line, just ordinary South Africans picking up their phone saying, look, this is the bee in my bonnet, this is the person who I want to thank, this is what I saw in the traffic, all through the vision of Issie Kirsh.
Absolutely. We'll miss him. He was a lovely man. He taught me a lot about business. I'll tell you one final little story, Lester. I'd just been hired as sports editor at 702. This was back in 1980. And it was my first job in management. And I went to Issie's office and I banged on the door and I said, Issie, should I do this or should I do that? Or should I do something different? What should I do? And he said, Chris, you're an executive now. I did not hire you to bring me questions. I hired you to bring me answers. And that was my first and possibly most important lesson in management. Thank you, Issie Kirsh.
And thank you, Chris Gibbons. There are plenty of listeners asking, what are you doing now? Chris, you're in consulting, you're a speaker, you still write. I heard you not too long ago talking to John Matham about your pet project and what you love, and that's talking about Everest, and you're still doing that these days.
Oh yeah, no, I edit a magazine called Acumen for Gibbs, the business school in Johannesburg, Gordon Institute of Business Science. I do a fair bit of media training, teaching executives how to interact with the media. And I do a small business report on another radio station in the Eastern Cape. No names, no pack drill.
It will always be, and there may be other presenters, and with much love to all the other presenters, it will still always be the Midday Report with Chris Gibbons to me. Chris, hope you have a very good
You're very
day.
kind.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate
Thanks,
it. Chris Gibbons, former presenter, one of the first voices on 702. In the 1980s, we were reflecting on the passing on the founder of Primedia, as well as the founder of what started out as Channel 702 and then Radio 702, eventually became Talk Radio 702. Issie Kirsh passing away at the age of 90 at the weekend.